Hi students, I am Dr. Pa Rajeshwari, faculty in the Department of Food Science and Nutrition, Avinashalingam Institute for Home Science and Higher Education for Women. Today we are going to see about the causative factors for nutritional anemia and preventive measures. Introduction. Anemia is the most common blood disorder and a widespread public health problem which is associated with an increased risk of mortality and morbidity. This occurs when the level of healthy red blood cells is too low. The term anemia is derived from the Greek word which means a deficiency of blood. Anemia results when red blood cell production is reduced in the bone marrow. Red blood cells contain a protein called hemoglobin, which is the oxygen carrying protein in the blood and that is responsible for carrying oxygen to the tissues. It is a major component of all red blood cells and gives blood its red color. This protein picks up oxygen from the lungs and carries it throughout the body and delivers it to all your cells. In addition, hemoglobin also picks up some carbon dioxide produced by the cells and transports it to the lungs from where it is exhaled out. Cells need oxygen for their basic functions and also to keep them alive. Hence, without enough red blood cells to transport oxygen to the cells and carbon dioxide away from the cells, it is likely to suffocate every tissue and organ system in the body. As there is no enough oxygen for being delivered to their tissues, people with anemia often feel tired. Nutritional anemia may be defined as the condition results from the inability of the erythropoietic tissue to maintain a normal hemoglobin concentration on account of inadequate supply of one or more nutrients, leading to reduction in the total circulating hemoglobin. Nutritional anemia is caused by the absence of any dietary essential that is involved in hemoglobin formation or by poor absorption of these dietary essential. Now, let us move on to the types of anemia. Based upon the causative factors, anemia is divided into three types, namely hypochromic and microcytic anemia. If there is any insufficiency of iron for the formation of hemoglobin, the red blood corpuscles are pale and small and the anemia is said to be hypochromic and microcytic in nature. Next, megaloblastic anemia. Vitamin B12 and folic acid are coenzymes in the DNA synthesis pathway. The deficiency of the vitamins or impairment in their utilizations results in the damage or inadequate synthesis of DNA. The synthesis of RNA and protein is unaffected, so there is cytoplasmic enlargement, not matched by the DNA synthesis, which appears to delay or block mitotic division. Thus, there appears to be a asynchronism between cytoplasmic maturation and nuclear maturation. If the maturation of red blood corpuscles in the bone marrow is impaired by lack of folate or vitamin B12, the cells which enters the bloodstream are irregular in size and shape, but usually larger than the normal and contain their full complement of hemoglobin. This anemia is also known as orthochromic megaloblastic anemia. Next, we will see about macrocytic anemia. This is also called as folic acid anemia. It is caused by the deficiency of folic acid. Folic acid is usually found in vegetables. Frequent consumption of alcohol is one of the common causes for macrocytic anemia. It usually affects people between the age of 50 to 60 years. Causative factors of nutritional anemia are broadly divided into nutritional and non-nutritional factors. Coming to the nutritional factors, first is iron intake and absorption. The average cereal and pulse-based diets are consumed in most developing countries would appear adequate in iron content for an adult. But the availability of iron from such diet is very poor. Dietary iron intake is related to both caloric intake and the quality of the diet. Various factors inhibit iron absorption, of which phytates and tannins present in the plant foods are most important. Besides, deficiencies of ascorbic acid, calcium and protein commonly encountered in these diets tend to lower iron absorption. Minimum of 4 to 6 mg of dietary iron should be observed daily during pregnancy to maintain iron balance. This level of iron can be derived only from 30 to 40 mg of dietary iron. However, even the best of the diets do not contain this amount of iron. Hence, consuming iron-rich foods daily along with vitamin C-rich foods to enhance iron absorption is very important to prevent anemia even in special conditions. Iron stores and iron loss. Most of the Asian population have very negligible iron stores as indicated by poor bone marrow hemosiderin levels and low levels of liver iron. Iron losses during menstruation increases the iron requirement of adult women. Iron losses are further increased by excessive sweating in tropical climate, hookworm infestation and gastrointestinal bleeding to peptic ulcer or hemorrhoids. Most women enter pregnancy with little or no iron reserve. Repeated and closely spaced pregnancies and prolonged periods of lactation may deplete the iron stores, and this is reflected in the increased incidence of anemia with higher parity. Malaria and menorrhagia is another important causative factor for depletion of iron stores resulting in anemia. Increased demands for iron. Demand for iron is increased during pregnancy and growth. Failure to provide iron through diet or medication would lead to anemia. When adequate iron is not available, hemoglobin values are terms generally equal or exceed those present in early pregnancy. Overall, 500 to 600 mg of additional iron is required during entire pregnancy, the need being relatively smaller in the first trimester. This means a daily requirement of 4 to 6 mg of observed iron, which can be met only by mobilizing iron stores in addition to achieving maximal absorption of dietary iron. Exclusive breastfeeding over 6 months may result in loss of another 100 to 180 mg of iron. Rapid growth during infancy and childhood increases iron requirement. Unhygienic feeding practices leading to repeated diarrhea can also lead to malabsorption of iron, resulting in anemia. Next is the non-nutritional factors, which includes starvation or poverty, conditions like cancers of the intestine, chronic illnesses, allergic reactions to prescribed medications, lead toxicities, etc. Inherited defects like thalassemias and sickle cell diseases, which cause faulty red blood structure, thus hastening red blood cell destruction. Aplastic anemia is a condition where there is complete failure of the bone marrow in producing red blood cells. Infections like malaria, Rh incompatibility in pregnant mother, anemia of chronic disorder due to increased restriction and infiltration of cells as in malignancy, leukemia and hypersplenism. Infections, rheumatoid arthritis, systemic lumps, erythromatous and Crohn's disease due to chronic inflammation and malignancy. There is lack of iron, release from macrophages to serum, reduced red blood cell lifespan and inadequate erythropoietin response. Medications which prevent iron absorption from the gut include proton pump inhibitors in treating acidity, tetracycline, etc. Causes chronic mild bleeding from the gut. Aspirin is another widely used medication known to cause mild to moderate bleeding from the gut. Hypocortisones and valproic acid or drugs which cause folic acid deficiencies. Vitamin B12 deficiency can be caused by drugs like amoxicillin and phenytoin. Now we shall have a look at the various preventive measures for nutritional anemia. First important aspect is dietary approach. We should first understand that anemia is a condition and not a disease. A balanced and nutritious diet can go a long way in reversing anemia. Promoting consumption of iron-rich foods along with vitamin C is one of the low-cost preventive measures available at the doorsteps of the downtrodden to the rich population. All medical, health and social workers, horticulture department have roles to play in promoting the consumption of iron-rich food. Promotion of consumption of pulses, green leafy vegetables, other vegetables and meat products which are rich in iron and superior bioavailability of iron, particularly by pregnant and lactating mothers and preschool children. Addition of iron-rich foods to the weaning foods of infants must be encouraged. Regular consumption of foods rich in vitamin C to promote iron absorption such as orange, guava, amla, etc. to be considered. Red meats, egg yolk, yam and liver are some of the richest sources of iron. However, there is hope for vegetarians too. Dietary iron is obtained from spinach and other dark leafy vegetables. Dried beans, parsley is one of the richest sources of iron among plants. Nuts, seeds, dried fruits like apricots, peaches, raisins and prunes. Fortified cereals, fortified soya products, brewer's yeast. Promote home gardening to increase the availability of common iron-rich foods such as green leafy vegetables. Next comes food fortification. The fortification of a widely consumed and centrally processed staple foods with iron is the backbone of anemia control in many countries. Fortification involves centralized decision making, legislation and action by flour mills and other food processing plants. Fortification of commonly consumed food items with iron has been considered as one of the practical approaches for the prevention and control of iron deficiency anemia. The combined use of ferric orthophosphate and sodium acid sulfate in the fortification of table salt has recently been reported to produce acceptable long-term bioavailability with only slight discoloration. EDTA is widely used in the food processing industry as a chelating agent and has been found to be an effective enhancer of iron bioavailability. The iron salt of EDTA has been successfully used to fortify sugar in Guatemala. Field trials have been shown that in consumption improves the population's iron status. Fortified sugar costs approximately Rs 2070 more than the non-fortified sugar. Salt is considered as eminently suitable vehicle for iron fortification in India as it satisfies all the criteria for an ideal vehicle and it is consumed by all the segments of people within a range of 12 to 20 grams per day with an average intake of 50 grams per day per person. Technology is now available to double fortify the salt with iron and iodine to tackle the twin problems of iron deficiency anemia and iodine deficiency disorders. Fortification with iron has been successfully adopted for rice, sugar, milk, fish sauce and curry powders. Increasing density and bioavailability of iron either by chemical fortification and biofortification being considered as strategies to control and prevent nutritional anemia. However, till it becomes universally available, it is essential that anemia prophylaxis program is implemented more effectively and also policies for combating micronutrient malnutrition must be firmly rooted in food-based rather than drug-based approaches. Supplementation is another channel for prevention of anemia. In order to prevent anemia, treatment with low dosage of oral iron is adequate. This is the basis of the National Nutritional Anemia Prophylaxis Program in India, wherein expectant and nursing mothers are given 60 mg of elemental iron and 0.5 mg of folic acid. Children in the age group of 1 to 5 years are given 20 mg of elemental iron and 0.1 mg of folic acid. However, the program has not been very successful due to several reasons such as lack of awareness, poor distribution, and irregular intake by the beneficiaries. Higher or excessive intake of iron is associated with several side effects and intolerance. Frequent evaluation is needed to assess the impact of iron supplementation as either therapeutic or as preventive measure. Since deficiency of folic acid is high during pregnancy, infancy, incorporation of folic acid would be of value in both therapeutic and in preventive programs. Adolescent girls are to be beneficiaries in this program. Less frequent administration of oral iron is equally beneficial in prophylaxis, especially in school children and adolescents. In addition to iron and folate intake, improvement in environmental sanitation and personal hygiene are also needed in control of hookworm infestation. An improvement in food intake pattern can show improvement in hemoglobin levels. Awareness. Emphasis should be made on educating both the health functionaries as well as the general population about anemia. Cooking in iron pots and pans can also increase the amounts of iron consumption. Exercises in moderation can improve blood circulation. However, an excess dose additional stress which can be harmful in severe anemia. Creating awareness among the mothers attending antenatal clinics, immunization sessions, Balwadi centers and daycare centers about the prevalence and ill effects of anemia and how it can be prevented. To get vitamin B12, consumption of meat, curds or eggs need to be encouraged. Iron acquired foods during processing like rice flakes and dry foods should be encouraged for consumption. Also, by discouraging the consumption of beverages such as tea and other alcoholic beverages, tamarind immediately after food, as it may hinder the absorption of iron in the body, especially for pregnant women and children. Next, we will have a brief look on the other preventive measures, which include medication. For the treatment of anemia, medications are available. The most common prescribed medications are folic acid supplements, vitamin B12 injections, and iron supplements. Intake of iron supplements can cause toxicity in some persons. A very rare genetic disorder that causes increased absorption of iron leading to an overload is called hemochromatosis. This condition is as dangerous as having too little iron in the body. Since men lose less iron compared to women, hemochromatosis is more prevalent in men. Prenatal iron therapy. Prenatal iron therapy is used when iron deficiency anemia is detected in the last trimester of pregnancy or when the patient does not take oral iron preparation or supplements and anemia is severe. So, the advantage of therapy are minimization of hospital stay. In a short period of time, total amount of needed iron can be administered and no problem of gastrointestinal intolerance. At present, 3 types of prenatal iron preparation is used, namely iron dextran, iron sorbitol complex and dextriferrin iron carbohydrate complex. While iron dextran can be administered by intramuscular as well as intravenous routes, iron sorbitol complex should be administered only by intramuscular tone. However, iron dextran is given intramuscularly. Intravenous iron dextran is either given as a total dose infusion or in divided doses slowly. To prevent severe systemic reactions, initial test doses given. Use of antihistamines may help in reducing side effects. Prenatal iron should be administered only in the following circumstances: severe iron deficiency, malabsorption, intolerance, when regularity of iron intake is not certain, and when there is a need to obtain adequate amount in minimum time. If the anemia is severe and the patient is in the last trimester, blood transfusion or prenatal iron would be the method of choice to stimulate oxygen carrying enzymes and prevent premature labor due to intrauterine anoxia in the severely anemic patients. Next is the blood transfusion. It is the treatment of choice in severe anemia where hemoglobin levels and oxygen of the blood have to be restored rapidly, especially prior to surgery or in the third trimester of pregnancy. Such subjects often come in a state of anoxia and cardiac failure. It is of the utmost importance to combat tissue anoxia as early as possible for saving patient's life. In anemia with cardiac failure, an exchange transfusion with fresh blood has been found to be very effective in bringing down the mortality as it restores blood volume without increasing the load on the heart. Blood transfusion has to be followed by supportive treatment to improve nutritional status. To conclude, adequate iron status is necessary for the health and even survival of pregnant women as well as for the prevalence of adequate birth weight infants, thus ensuring all the positive longer term health and development outcomes that follow. There is now considerable evidences that not addressing iron deficiency and other anemias will cost countries up to 2% of their GNP and impair the intellectual development of their children and future productivity. The international and national health partners need to get firmly behind these statements so that consistent measures and approaches reinforce one's iron deficiency and other anemias must be repositioned as an economic intervention that will increase the economic well-being of poor countries and reduce inequities. Innovative interventions such as multi-micronutrients, weekly dosing, slow release supplements and improved forms of iron with high bioavailability should also be brought to a quick consequence and where the evidence base supports it into mainstream programs. The integrated approaches can be used in these countries should be widely implemented and approximately tailored to a country's concern and resources. There is virtually a complete consensus that any programs designed to prevent and control the nutritional anemia must be multi-pronged and include improved social conditions by poverty elevation measures as well as the more direct measures of fortification, supplementation and improved healthcare. Poverty and inequity reduction programs, while not frequently thought of as an anemia prevention activity, are in fact likely to be essential since iron deficiency anemia and other anemias differently affect the poor, especially women and children of the downtrodden. Donor funds should be especially addressed to nutritional interventions including preventing and controlling nutritional anemias, infectious diseases such as malaria, tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS, parasitic infection, and certain chronic inflammations or other factors that contribute to anemia and impair nutritional and health status. It is therefore important to take the total health environment into account and control or treat any underlying disease. Thus, adequate nutrition and health status should receive high priority during both pregnancy and infancy. Long-term outcomes and effectiveness is not yet fully defined with regard to nutrition, health and general well-being and should be receive priority in near future.